Well, greetings, everybody. Thank you so much for jumping on this. Obviously, really nice to chat Aufguss and to hear from some excellent speakers and some guys who essentially play a vital role in the current sort of UK Aufguss movement. Um, uh, if possible, I'd just like to give a bit of an overview of myself. I'll jump to the second point I was going to kind of touch on, but I represent a company called Finnmark. We've been operating in the sauna space for the last 10 years, doing selling equipment and materials, bespoke installations, and we see this as a huge opportunity to support things like Aufguss because it brings a lot more people into the sauna who wouldn't otherwise go. And you guys, as sauna meisters or sauna masters, get to curate these amazing experiences, and people stay longer, enjoy it more, return more often. And I see that obviously.
Oh, have we lost Jake?
I think we might have done.
Yeah, we've lost him.
He's gone.
So should we go around? Shall I jump in next and introduce myself,
Yeah.
and then I'll pass over to you guys? So I am registered on here as Gabrielle, but my name's Deborah Carr. I'm Aufguss lead for the UK, and have been behind bringing Show Aufguss to the UK, and helped bring about the very first Aufguss Championships. I's back. Oh no, he's gone.
Back. Sorry about that, guys. Yes. So, but it's been nice to introduce Deb, who obviously runs Aufguss UK. So, we're big supporters of this as a movement and really keen to encourage this. And thank you all for your time for jumping on this. And Deb, sorry, please continue with your wonderful introduction.
Thanks, Jake. So yes, I started working with Jake. Jake's been a massive supporter of Aufguss and helped us get it off the ground from the very first competition that we had 3 years ago. It's been a really exciting journey to see the growth of sauna, but also of Aufguss, and how well show and performance Aufguss has been embraced in the UK. We've gone from strength to strength over the last 3 years, with participants from the competition then going on to international events. So they've had the opportunity to go to Germany, to Holland, Norway, to compete and represent the UK, which is really exciting. We're now starting to plan for next year, which hopefully year 4 will be our biggest and best competition year as to date. I met James and Lucy 2 years ago, actually at the Aufguss Championships, and I've been working with them ever since, and really very pleased to be working with them going forward. So I will pass over to Lucy next, if that's okay, just to introduce yourself.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much, Deb. So my name's Lucy. I'm a theatre set designer. I'm a costume designer, and I'm also the founder of a design practice called Studio 360. And we specialise in creating inspirational and unique public spaces through a combination of culture, events, and community engagement. And I first fell in love with I guess the power of sauna after working in Scandinavia. And for me, the sauna is both a personal place, it's a spiritual retreat, but it's also a place to have a lot of fun, which is what got me involved in Aufguss in the first place. James, I'll pass over to you.
Hi, thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is James. I'm a theatre director. I direct plays, I direct musicals in the UK and elsewhere around the world. I've been a sauna fan for many, many years, but I only discovered Aufguss a couple of years ago, and it instantly transformed my relationship with sauna. The similarities between Aufguss and theatre are so clear to me, and it excited me so greatly. And yes, Lucy and I decided we would take ourselves to the UK Aufguss Championships 2 years ago, which were held at Galgorm in Northern Ireland, and we were totally blown away by the skill of the Aufguss masters on show by the quality of the work and by the passion that the community have for this art form. And we're desperate to get involved. So we've been really privileged to work alongside Deb and alongside a lot of the brilliant UK Aufguss performers for the last couple of years.
Have we got Jake back?
Jake, back to you if you're there.
Yep.
Well, should we just, Deb, in case Jake's disappeared again, should we just carry on? So what we were...
I'm here, sorry, it just froze, so apologies. Having some technical issues this evening. So I'm going to run through a few sort of questions, hopefully give everybody on the call a bit of a better understanding of what Aufguss is and the guys involved this evening. So to all speakers for this question, for those who are sort of completely new to the concept, how would each of you describe what Performance Aufguss is in one sentence? And if you'd like to kick us off, James.
Very simply, it's a show in a sauna.
I think for me, if I was to describe it in a sentence, I would say it's like Strictly Come Dancing, but in a sauna.
Yeah, I'm going to pick up on that, I think, Deb, because I often explain it to my friends as Eurovision with all the senses.
I think those are really good, and certainly from my perspective, I think when you go into a sauna, you're in a much more vulnerable state, both in the sense that you're not wearing a lot of clothes and you're physically exposed to heat and humidity, and a lot more open to sort of emotions and creativity. And I think it's just a fantastic fusion of performing arts, storytelling, music, scents, if you like aromatherapy, you can tell a huge story in a very short amount of time. So yeah, I think those guys have hit the nail on the head. Deborah, what sparked your own journey into sort of Aufguss and Performance Aufguss? Was there a moment when you realized this was not just sort of a wellness ritual, but also performance art?
I know to the moment where I just had this amazing moment with Show Aufguss. It was actually the first time that I went to competition Aufguss in Czech Republic after we were allowed to kind of travel and everything again after COVID. I'd been training as an Aufguss master and a sauna master myself, but had kind of been going more down the ritualistic side of it from the well-being perspective. I thought I understood about the performance of it, but the first time that I experienced this show in a sauna it was absolutely mind-blowing. I really can't tell you how profound of effect it actually had on me, because the story and the show it just captivates you. And I think, like you quite rightly touched on, because you are sort of kind of more vulnerable in a sauna because of the environment that you're in, I think it subconsciously opens you up to feel it more. And in that short space of time, so a show Aufguss is usually around 15 minutes, the immersive experience that the sauna master takes you on is just incredible, because it's quite a 360 experience, because obviously you've got the heat, you've got the story and the journey that the sauna master's taken you on, but then you've also got the smell, the sound, the heat, and everything in there as well. So it's such an immersive experience that it's really powerful. So for me, it kind of opened that one performance really opened Pandora's box. And that was, 5 years ago?
So, James, as a theatre director, obviously, Deb sort of talks about the performance element of Aufguss and it being quite a sensory, theatrical sort of space. what drew you to sort of Aufguss, and what similarities do you see between, professional theatre and Aufguss?
Yeah, I mean, the first time I ever experienced Aufguss in 2016, I was in Sweden. I was directing a production of Les Miserables in an opera house in Sweden, and I was going to the sauna regularly, as I did at home, just as a place to relax and recharge and think. And on one occasion, a woman walked into the sauna with a towel, asked me something in Swedish, and as I'm very British about these things, I just sort of said yes without understanding what she was asking me. And she started wafting me with the towel, which was quite concerning at first. But as this went on, the more I understood what was happening, the more I sort of appreciated that she was putting essential oils onto the stove and that she was circulating the air, and that she had a towel technique which reminded me very much of dance, of choreography. And the more I relaxed and the more I enjoyed this sort of weird experience, the more I noticed the similarities between what I did as a day job and what was happening in the sauna, in that a performer was essentially doing something really amazing and I was getting to watch it and I was getting to feel and experience something. And that, I think, just lodged in my head for the very first time, the idea that art could happen in a sauna. And I suppose from then I started noticing, just as a sauna goer, the similarities in architecture, the fact that saunas arrange groups of people, communities of people around a stage, or in a sauna, a stove, that it's an amazing place in which to bond communally, that you have an experience in a sauna with other people that you can't have on your own or elsewhere. And that's very much, that sort of very much chimes with theatre. I think that theatre is a communal experience, it's a live experience. You get the benefits of it by sitting in a room with other people and experience something together. So yeah, that was the starting point. And then I first saw Show Aufguss. I'd never seen Show Aufguss until I went to Galgorm 2 years ago and saw the UK champs, and that just took it to a whole new level for me, because of course there is costume, there's props, there's sound design, there's lighting design, there's choreography, there's text, basically all of the elements of theatre. And the thing that really blew my mind, which I only found out in Galgorm, was that an Aufguss ritual is structured in 3 acts, which of course is the traditional structure of a play, a 3-act play. So when I sort of found that was the last bit of the jigsaw for me, that, oh, Aufguss and theatre are even structured in the same way. It's basically the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. The Lucy, we'll jump across to your sort of more sort of design focus. So designing for theatre and sensory environments requires a lot of thought about space and the use of space. What surprised you about working with sauna as a performance venue? Because obviously it's not typically what people expect as a performance location.
No, I guess that's true. But as James touched upon, I think the architecture of theatres and saunas are so similar in that in both the audience gather together for a communal experience, whether there are maybe just a handful of people, 3 or 4 people watching a ritual, whether there are 300 in some of the huge, event saunas in Germany. It feels to me like the other audience members are as important as the performers in terms of it shaping the experience. And for me, Aufguss and event sauna and theatre, they all give a feeling that is both incredibly personal, deeply personal, and also communal. And so I guess in that sense, it feels like there are huge similarities between them. And I think also as a theatre designer, I spend a lot of time thinking about the audience journey, both in the space, so into the theatre, let's say if it's taking place in a traditional theatre, into the theatre, into the room of the space, and then how we choose to curate that experience for the audience. So what's the lighting like? How does it feel for the audience to go into that room? How do you curate the experience from beginning to end of the show? And I think, again, as James says, one of the things that really blew my mind when we first experienced Aufguss was this idea that everyone kind of goes in relatively quickly because of the heat. You haven't got very long. You've got your 12 to 15 minutes. And at the end, it's so hot. Everyone's just trying to get out really quickly. And so that's an incredibly intense experience to mediate for somebody who's going through that. So that for me feels very similar. And then there are also just little things like the stove as a character. I think when you're watching a ritual, the stove is part of the show inherently. And then, of course, I've really embraced the extra elements you've got to play with in the sauna. For example, the herbs, the way that the smells and the scents can affect the audience's mood and trigger kind of different memories and different ideas for the audience. That's unique to Aufguss, and that's something that we don't have in theatre that's very special.
Yeah, just on that, Deborah, how do you find that scent, sound, and heat can be used as creative tools rather than just sort of atmospheric elements within the sauna during an Aufguss performance?
I think they're actually huge parts of it. For me personally, I think smell is a huge tool that we have. Our sense of smell is directly attached to the limbic system, which is attached in the brain to memory. So smell really does evoke memories. It takes you on a journey. So the Aufguss masters, particularly in show Aufguss, if they get the smell and the aroma right, they take you on a journey just by that. So, like, for example, there was some guys did it was a comedy sort of sketch almost that they did in the Wild West. And they brewed coffee and they burnt like a tobacco. And you really, just by closing your eyes and smelling it, you were already on that journey without anything else. I think the lighting as well is actually really key and can really set the scene, actually more than I first really appreciated. Just by changing the lighting really changes the mood. That dark, some smoke and that dark atmospheric lighting with the smell takes you on a journey itself, which really helps. These tools really help and support the Aufguss masters before you even start to tell a story, pour any water on the stove or wave any towels. So they're huge parts of it, but it also makes it so much more fun as well, and for the guests, really immersive.
Thanks, Deb. And James, from your experience, what do you find makes a truly memorable Aufguss performance? Is it the narrative? Is it technique? Is it some sort of emotional connection to the performance, or is it something altogether more intangible?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's all of the above. And I think as theatre artists, we try and control as much as we possibly can. And I think that's about making sure that your story is really well constructed, making sure that your lighting is absolutely on point, making sure that you've thought about every element of your performance. But the thing that makes theatre magic, and I think the thing that makes Aufguss magic, is actually the intangible, the thing that you can't really control, is the connection between the performer and the material and the audience. And when theatre is really magical, it's this somehow congregational connection between a group of strangers who are sitting in the dark and the material and the performers that they are watching. There's an amazing study done a few years ago that showed that audiences' heartbeats synchronize in theatre shows and at gigs. And I don't know if that study's ever been done on an audience for an Aufguss show, but I suspect that the same thing happens. That if everybody is really in sync, if the performance is really brilliant, that actually we somehow sync and all collectively enjoy the experience together. And that's, I think, what makes it truly, truly magical.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to open that one out actually to the floor to the rest of us. The have and obviously, you know, you can build on this as well, James, if you like. Have any of you seen any performances where that the heat, the audience participation, the performer created something completely spontaneous or unexpected? And I'll finish by adding sort of my 2 cents of my certainly the most remarkable performance I think I've seen.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I'll jump in, Jake, and say at the last UK Championships, which were held at Arc in I think June of this year, there was a guest performer, Emma Chadkova, who performed an Aufguss ritual called Flow. There was no narrative, there was no words. It was just a dance piece, really. And it was so beautifully performed, and the essentials were so on point with the music, with Emma's performance, that it felt completely mesmerizing. And I think the whole audience at Arc were completely absorbed in it, and time just kind of disappeared. And that for me is really, really memorable and an example of a performer perfectly in tune with an audience.
Lucy, Deb?
Sorry. Yeah, I think for me, the one that sort of stands out the most, which kind of on paper it shouldn't have in one respect, it was two sauna masters from the Czech Republic, Robert Zidek, who actually then went on to be a mentor for the UK, and his sauna master partner, Lukes. They did an interpretation of the story about Christmas Day in the Second World War, when the German and the English or British put down arms and played football on, as I say, on Christmas Day. And it was the most beautiful piece of artistry that I'd seen, that was so respectful to the story. I think I spent about 7 of the 14 minutes just with tears literally streaming down my face. It was so emotionally beautiful, and the way the guys did it was just so on point. The heat was great. They used the lighting to their advantage. In one part of it, all the lights in the sauna went off, and they both held up a Christmas tree that was lit and sang Silent Night, one in English and one in German, and it was so powerful, but yet so simple, that I think that's probably one of the Aufgusses that will stay with me literally for the rest of my life. It was just beautiful. Over to you, Lucy.
And Lucy?
That, Jake. I think you should go for it. I don't think I can beat that.
Well, I have to be really careful here, because every time I try and explain this particular experience, then like Deb, I sort of find myself, holding back the tears. And I think that speaks for a lot of like the vulnerability and the emotive, ness of that experience, that even when I try and tell people about this, I sort of end up feeling like, I have to, I have something in my throat, or my eyes start sort of puffing up, and I'm like, I don't, it's not a comfortable place for me to go to. But the one in particular that sort of chokes me up was probably two years ago at the finals at Saitama. There was a Japanese team, and I wouldn't say they were typically what an outsider might think would be the best team. They certainly weren't sort of notorious. Nobody expected them to be the best. They didn't look like gymnasts. They didn't come across as as particular favorites by just looking at them, which sometimes people kind of judge the book by its cover, and that's another reason why I liked it so much. And their Aufguss was quite simple, and the scents were nice, and the story was just incredibly emotive. And it was
Right, can you
about
see that?
a young love couple.
Yes.
who get
okay, so yeah, just to
separated
pick
by
up
the
on
Second World War,
Kath's
and all the way through they carry this
look at
sort of wind chime
the way that
that's made by
her
them
amazing
as
approach
young
to whole person
as a young
health
couple, and then
can
whilst
be
he's away at
integrated
war,
into
you know,
sauna
she's
practice.
sort of
So I think
alone by
I'm sure lots
herself,
of
and
people
then
who are sauna operators
unfortunately
who know
he
sauna bathing
dies
particularly
during the
well
war,
can see
and
exactly where
the sort of the ghost, the
sauna
spirit of this guy comes
kind of
back,
touches on all of these amazing
and
things.
the
So
sort of,
there's this idea
you know,
that
the wind chime
it's going from that curative to
moves with
preventative
the
approach.
Aufguss
So
and
that
the
is,
ghost
rather than
of
waiting for
her
everyone
lost
to
partner.
become ill and then giving them lots of
I
drugs
was there
or
just
kind of
like,
taking
oh
a very,
my goodness, you know, I'm
focused
welling up,
approach on curing
and I
disease.
looked up,
It's actually
and
looking
you know, this
at
is the most
health as
remarkable thing
something
about
that
going to
we
these
take
things is,
control of,
you know,
and
you kind of
we're
look up,
improving it before that
you're
damage
so
is even
completely
done.
within your own mind's
There's this
eye
idea
that
of
you kind
moving
of stop,
from
and
rescue
then you look
to
up, and
resilience.
there are
So actually
100
this is
people, maybe
making
200
the
people
individual
in
the own
sauna,
architect of
all
their
from
health.
all around the
So
world,
making it a really
grown,
active
you know,
thing
big
that they
Danish
feel that they are
Viking
in
men
control of,
in floods of
rather
tears.
than what a lot of
Everybody's
modern
crying.
medicine does, which
Everybody's
is pushes
really, you know,
people into a
touched
bit
by
more of a
this.
passive role.
So, you know,
you
I think
are kind
these,
of thinking,
and this is
I
a
can
sort
live
of
my
thing
life
I can have.
how I want
I've had
because
similar
there's the
sort of
NHS,
emotive
there's a doctor who's
experiences
going to
from
look after me, and
theatre,
often when they then become
but
fall
I've
into
never had the
ill
issue
health, they
that when I
realise that
then
it's
try
not
and
actually
explain
that
to
useful.
somebody
And again, you
about,
get this
oh, I went to the theatre
uncomplicated
and it was really
relationship that
moving,
happens of
and
where
this, you know,
it's again
brought me to tears.
all of the
Like,
problems that Kath
you know,
outlined, this kind
explaining
of
the
approach
story
of the
to
heart
somebody
sync GP.
from an Aufguss
And then I think there's
perspective,
also this really
well, it's still enough to
interesting
make
one, which
me
is
feel
beyond
those
just
feelings.
looking at
Whereas I think
medicine
with,
as
you know, typical
biology.
theatre,
So
I can
again,
say, oh, it's really good.
a lot
Go,
of
you
modern
know,
medicine just
you'll
looks at the
absolutely
individual
cry your
and looks
eyes
at the
out, but
individual
you know, it's really,
physiological
really good, and I can
pathways
sort
and
of
where medicine
disconnect
can
it. But I
go in
think
and interact with
the,
that when
you know, the
it
vulnerability
goes
of
wrong.
that situation makes
But
it so much
I
more
think there is a
tender.
lot of discussion and a lot of
If
research
you're
emerging that
the
actually we are
sort
very
of
much connected beings, and all our
theatrical
health is
person who really
heavily
loves to
impacted
transmit
by our
those
social connections,
emotions,
but also
Aufguss
to a
is
certain
such a
degree our
good
spiritual connections as well, and our
platform to be able
sense
to
of
do that,
connectedness
because it will be
to
so
nature,
memorable.
to
And I
each other, but
think,
also
you know,
to
from all
a wider,
the
more
speakers here,
existential
just in
approach.
answering this question, you can see that, you know,
So
these
this
things
idea
have a
of social
profound,
belonging,
lasting impact.
if anyone was at the Sauna Summit this year
James, just going
and
back
saw Dr. Martha
to
Newson's talk, this is
you on this,
she's presented this
for
fantastically.
performers
It's
coming from a
this kind
dance
of
or theatre
fact that
background,
social isolation is as harmful
are
to
there
our
any sort
health
of
as
physical
smoking
or
or
mental
obesity in
adjustments
predicting our
that you think
mortality.
are needed
So there's
to
so
be able
much
to
made
perform
of
in
how much people should lose
in
weight,
the sauna
people should quit
environment,
smoking.
or one
I
of
think in this
sort of,
particular
let's
case,
say,
it's
higher
the same
temperature,
impact
higher
of
humidity?
stopping a 15 cigarettes a day habit.
Any performer who has danced full out in a
if you go to the
musical
doctors,
in
no one
period
is
costume
questioning,
under the lights
how
on
much are
stage
you hanging
has
out with your friends?
already
Do you see your
performed
family that often?
at sauna-like
It's always, how much
temperatures.
do you smoke? How many alcohol
Yeah, no, I
units do
think
you
in all
drink per
seriousness,
week?
I think
It's
it's
just
a
not being prioritised
fascinating
at the
art
moment.
form, Aufguss, because it
There's also this
feels
really
like it has
fascinating
elements
people who
of
like research.
artistic
To
performance
Naomi
and
Eisenberger
also
at
elements of
UCLA. She's got this
sporting
amazing
performance.
avenue
And I do
of
think
research
that
looking
you
at
need
the
to
association between
train,
social
as dancers do in
stress and
theatre,
social connection,
certainly
and
as
what that does to
ballet
our immune
dancers do,
system and
very
our
much
levels of
like a
chronic
sports
inflammation.
person.
She also does a lot
There's
on
no
how
substitute for doing the
physical
reps,
pain and
for
emotional pain are incredibly similar things in our body.
rehearsing
So again, a
over and
real
over
whole
again
body,
in
mind
show
body
conditions,
approach
which
to
for
looking at health.
Aufguss obviously is
But what she's
at
found in
temperature.
this review is
And I
that
think
social
it
stress
does
and
require
isolation
a degree of
increase our chronic
stamina, a
inflammation.
degree
So
of
if we think
athletic
that a lot of modern
ability,
diseases,
a
Alzheimer's,
control of your breathing,
cardiovascular
particularly, I
disease,
think,
these all
an
cancer are
understanding
all
of
underlined
body
by this
posture of
idea of
stance, which dancers,
inflammation that
have
is triggered
ingrained
by
in them,
aging, but also
to be
social
able
stress
to deliver
can
performance
really interact to
consistently
make that worse.
over a sort of
On the
14-minute
flip side, chronic
period in a
inflammation also
sauna.
makes us actually more sensitive to
I'm obviously
social
not
stress
a
and
performer
isolation. So
myself,
if people are living
but
unhealthy lives, and pretty
observationally,
much
I
everything of
think
modern life increases our
the
levels of chronic
the
inflammation,
top
smoking, lack
Aufguss
of
masters
sleep,
seem to gain
overwork,
more power as the time
obesity.
goes on, even
All
though
of
they
that
must
actually
be
makes us more
absolutely
sensitive to
exhausted,
these
and you can see
stresses.
the
So
sweat
if
pouring
we
from their
have
faces.
high
The
levels of
bit
chronic
them
inflammation,
that is
we're
a
more
great
likely
performer,
to
and I
kind
think
of
this
see
is true of
people
actors
as
and sports
slighting us.
people as well,
We're more likely to be upset when someone rejects us, or if we get fired from work. So it's this incredibly self-reinforcing
that I think
situation.
can only come from
when we look at sauna, we know that
practice and
actually that
dedication
is
to
a
the
very
craft.
powerful way to quite dramatically and quickly rebalance those levels of chronic inflammation as well. So
Thank you.
there is again that really interesting approach to
just to
impacting
kind of
inflammation.
Build on that, Deborah. How
not
many?
just the heat, but also for the social.
How do performers pace themselves in those
so bringing back this back to
challenging
was talking about this idea
spaces?
of whole person care
maintain
in the
presence
sauna.
when the
and
heat
I think when I look at that, there's so many elements that sauna
dramatic
touches.
partner.
So this idea that we can reimagine the story of health and the importance of that for whole person care. So when you look at sauna, there is actually something very, I think, exciting about it for a lot of people. So it actually presents health as this lived practice, this ritual that we can do, and it's not something that we just again have to wait until disease happens, or not something that we're having to drag ourselves out to go for a 5K run or down to the gym. And I think there's also something very heartening that a lot of modern medicine, whether that is in approaches to nutrition or looking at the psychedelic renaissance, we are increasingly drawing on these ancient tools for these modern problems. And I think, again, that is beginning to help people to see that it's not just modern medicine and become a lot more exploratory with alternative approaches to health. A second element of this idea that health belongs to everyone is bang in line with this kind of Finnish mantra that in the sauna everyone is equal. And I think there's something very nice around it. Kind of focuses on you and puts you at the centre of that control. So it gives that person a sense of agency over their own health. It's not something that is conditional on a practitioner or a professional to give to them. But there's also this really interesting idea that it's a self-directed exposure and pacing. You're going into the sauna, you're feeling the temperature, you're deciding how long you're in there, you're deciding how long and how frequently you're going from week to week. And again, there's this idea it's really beginning to get you in connection with your own body. So again, we get asked a lot, how long should you spend in the sauna? And people are setting timers on their watches. And I think most people here would always advocate, you have to listen to your body. So there is a sense that you're really beginning to get people to tap into their own physiological responses. And there's again a wider conversation, which is probably a webinar in itself, that actually a lot of modern mental health problems arise because of issues with the top-down regulatory system, beginning to see patterns and sensory inputs that aren't there. So for example, in depression, you would say, no one loves me, my family's not there for me, when actually the sensory bottom-up input suggests otherwise. Again, psychosis, a very obvious one as well. So a lot of alternative approaches to health are actually all about improving that connection between the top-down and the sensory input, and that we kind of tap into that bottom-up sensory input in order to connect and fix the bottom-down processing issues that result in mental health issues. I don't know if you would agree with that. There's this idea of mind-body emotion connection. Again, this self-directed exposure. Oh no, that's where I would. Hang on.
Absolutely.
I've done that. Yeah, interpersonal and related determinants of health. That should not be like that. But so the mind-body emotion connection. So we have this idea that we have the mind, we have the body, but also there is this emotional and social level of it. And again, I'll go into the next slide about we have these three pillars of health: the mental, the physical, and the social. The stress being a signal and a teacher. So I think this is particularly intriguing one. We talk a lot about sauna's ability to rebuild resilience, but what does that really mean from a physiological point of view? So if you look at how our body responds to heat stress, it releases, as everyone is kind of commonly known, beta endorphins. They make us feel good, painkillers, etc. But the lesser known one is actually another endogenous opioid called dynorphin. And dynorphin is something that makes us feel uncomfortable. So that is released certainly in response to heat stress. It's the thing that shouts to you, get out, this is uncomfortable, I don't want to be here anymore. It's again
to build on that point as well, Lucy, are you able to sort of share an example of a moment where
but actually what you see is the more that dynorphin is released, the more you get a upregulation of the sauna elevated the sort of emotion or the meaning, discomfort, the more you build your pain-killing ability. So you can actually see that there is a way that our body responds
since I began
to
my
discomfort by becoming
exploring
more
the world
resilient
of
to
Aufguss.
stress and
this year
to
I
pain.
had the really good fortune to visit the Aufguss
Context matters.
playoffs
so
in
again,
Germany.
the context that we're in,
I was
we know
truly blown away by the way
is a
that
huge thing in the UK, very proud of it.
Intensity of the
and
sauna
it's really there
can
to create
make the
inclusion.
shows
We
feel
hear from many people
sadder,
who, they'll turn up
affect
to a
the
community
audience in
sauna
a
session.
more
They'll be there with
profound
strangers.
way,
They might be
and that
slightly
the
isolated
skill
in their
of the
community. They
performers,
might be new to their
the
community.
way that they, for example,
and
could
within a
introduce a
few
scent
sessions,
into the
they're
sauna
beginning
at
to feel
just
that
the right
sense
moment of the
real
story
inclusion and
that
local belonging.
really kind of
Again,
triggers something
local
for you,
belonging
where
and
you
a
can
sense of
feel the
belonging
whole
to a
room
group is
going,
very
oh,
important
that's
for
made me remember this
long-term
memory.
health
This made
outcomes.
me remember this thing. The smell of the lemon has made me feel like I'm
there's
waking
this
up
idea
and
that
it's early
shared
morning
heat
and
kind of
it's
dissolves this
Spain, or
hierarchy. We have
whatever
this
it is that
sense
sauna master is
people go in,
trying
and
to
for some
tell.
reason, it
And
seems
so
to get people to open up. It gets people to talk.
that's
It
something that's so
dissolves
unique
those
to
normal
Aufguss. But I think
barriers that we have about talking to
what I
strangers.
really saw
We become
in
more
Germany for
vulnerable.
the first time
People
in my
express themselves a
Aufguss
lot
journey
more,
was
and there's a sense of
the
shared
way
empathy,
that
and that's already been researched as well
being
to
in
see
the
if sauna
sauna
use
can
can
also
be
make
used
things
alongside
funnier and sillier. And actually watching some of the Aufguss masters
CBT, I was about to say
play with
ChatGPT,
that, play with the heat
as a way
in a
to
really witty and inventive
enhance
way as part of their stories.
approaches
That for me was I guess quite
better.
a new experience. It's another element.
So yeah, the three pillars of
to,
sauna health.
all
so
of
we
this,
break this down largely into
which
physical
I really,
health,
really
mental
enjoyed.
health, and social health. There is an argument that there is actually also spiritual health.
Thanks for that.
So yeah, again, that's a whole
James,
other debate for another day.
What are the qualities?
Everything that is on the
qualities
slide, I won't go too far into
actors and
all of these. I
dancers,
think again, you can look a lot of this
or sort
up.
of movement
If there
artists
is,
in
to all of these
general,
points, if there is
naturally
because
bring
research that's looked
that
at it
make
and actually
them
found this positive
ideal
association,
for
and
sort
we've
of
referenced it.
or
If there
for
is
the
something
opportunity
listed
to develop
that
into future
doesn't have
Aufguss masters.
a research reference, then it is just anecdotal.
Yeah, I'm so keen to see
we would
more
love to explore with
dancers
research groups
particularly,
actually coming up with data to prove this, which is things that we've experienced ourselves, or we hear time and time again from sauna operators and sauna
because I
bathers.
think so much of actor and dancer training, it prepares you brilliantly
but yeah, for even all of the ones that are listed,
I mean, in many ways,
there's always the
Aufguss
question of
is a
how
dance
reliable is the
performance,
evidence.
sometimes
There was
with
a great
additional narrative,
article
but
in The Economist
the
over the
majority
summer,
of the
which
work
was
is
again
being
looking
done
from a
physically,
very kind of thorough point of
and
view, like
dancers
how much
obviously
can
will
we
have a
actually
long
believe
training
in
of
how much
to
we actually
use their
believe
body,
in
how to
that this research is there.
respond
So
to
there's
choreography
longitudinal
or to
studies of
respond to
limited
music
use in the UK.
as
So
a
everyone is very
dancer.
familiar
And I think
with the Laufman
performers of all
studies from
kinds
the
understand how to
ischemic
hold
heart
space,
studies
understand how to
out of Finland. So for those who
manage
aren't familiar with it,
the
it is
nerves that come with
a study
entering a
of over
performance
2,000 Finnish
space.
men
Performers will have
that's looking
tactics
at
for
them over
preparing themselves for
I think it's like
performance.
two, maybe more
I also
decades.
think there's something interesting about the
Now, and
rigor of
looking at how
rehearsal.
frequently
I
they
think
sauna bathe, and then the instant of mortality and development of
in my
various
experience,
diseases. The issue is
dancers
they're
and
Finnish,
theatre
so
artists are so used to
like most
rehearsing and
frequent is
rehearsing
4
and
to 7
rehearsing
times a
and
week.
rehearsing
They
and
only start at
seeking
once a week.
perfection,
So in the
a
UK,
perfection
if
that
people
can
are
never be
saunering once
found,
a
but
week, we
with a
think
sort
that's
of
brilliant. That's going a
urgent
lot,
desire
but
to
to them
keep
it's
rehearsing
not.
until
So we have
every
this
element
whole
of the
thing which we call
performance
the
is
Laufman gap.
perfect. And I think
So this what happens
when
if you
I've
go
seen
from
really
never
great
sauna
Aufguss
bathing to going at
performances, it
least
feels to
once
me
a
like
week.
the Aufguss
So again, a lot
performer
of
has
the
had
work
that
that
similar
we're wanting to do and is already beginning
desire to rehearse and
to flourish
practice
is
and be ready
getting data for that. We're in an
performance. So,
advantageous
dancers
position
will have a
in the
massive
UK
head
in that
start if they enter the Aufguss arena. That
not
already
many
have
people,
so many
we don't
of the
have
skills and experiences
we
that
don't
are
have a
required.
widespread sauna culture, so not a lot of people really know what to expect when they go into the sauna. So there is an opportunity that we can really start looking at people
Lucy,
who
which
don't have any
aspects of these
preconceived notions of what
particular
benefits they might
disciplines
receive when they go in
discussed?
there.
Acting,
There's also another
storytelling,
issue in that the gold
props,
standard to
choreography,
really say yes, there is an impact here is a
or
randomized
sound,
controlled study, but important in that is to have a placebo
are what you would
control.
consider the most
So that's really
valuable
difficult. So
inside of
in
a
that you would have to
sauna
give
ritual?
someone the test condition. So
truth is
actually
that
having
they're
a very
all
hot sauna
super
experience.
valuable.
The placebo would be not
And I
having a hot
think,
sauna
as James
experience,
said
and
earlier,
it's very hard to
we are
put people
trained as
into
theatre makers
not
to
a
think
hot
about
room
every
and
single
convince them that
moment,
they're
every
having a
single
sauna.
second in
There is a
incredible
really good
detail, and
way
the
around this.
effect
So
that
Dr. Charles
second
Rezon
will
in
have
his
on the
depression
audience
studies,
and how
he
that
actually
then all
got around that
brings
by just putting people in front of
together.
very, very hot
So I don't
lights.
think that
So they
any
felt a
of
bit
those
hot, but it
disciplines is
wasn't to the
necessarily
level of
more
he actually used an
important or
infrared sauna
valuable
in
than
the
others.
in the
what
test
I
condition.
would say is that
So it didn't increase their core temperature, but they did
and what
feel
you're trying
hot
to
and
say.
sweaty and
I guess what I
uncomfortable.
mean by story is
so yeah, again, research groups across the UK, we've already had a number of people come and have already started researching this, and there's research in progress. So we've got the University of Greenwich, we've had the University of Coventry, University of Portsmouth, University of Bangor, and again, more people are beginning to come and ask us about would we support their studies. So we are more than happy to do that as the BSS. We can assist with participant recruitment, we can assist with publicising studies and just general checking if any experimental design is really testing for authentic sauna culture as well.
That these are all just amazing things that we get to play with.
So if there are any GPs and health professionals, or if any sauna operators are wondering what the best way is to actually start these relationships, I think the first one is for any GPs just to get them to experience it. So inviting them to come to a local sauna and try it for themselves. We had the last year for Social Prescribing Day in conjunction with Sauna Our Souls was a huge effort to get offer free saunas to NHS health workers. And then just to kind of briefly touch on props and lighting and there's a second bit which is just about developing relationships. So if you get people into the saunas, making sure that those are existing. That's about setting the scene, so if you're a GP and you're interested where we are, you don't have very long in a ritual map, which will be so actually the more work that lighting and sound can do and different props can do to kind of set the scene for the audience and establish, you can then contact them, you don't need to tell them everything, see if they are in the market for developing a social prescribing program. Some of the rituals I've seen that have made pretty much a uniform thing. I don't think I've ever heard of a sauna operator who's not interested in this. And then work with them to develop programs, whether that is using CAS, a 6-step model, or anything that is more in line with what their particular problems are for their local area. So that might be connecting with local social prescribers, or it might even be as simple as connecting with just local charities or support groups as well. So if you've got a local addiction charity, reaching out a older person charity or an isolated people in the community, reaching out to them and presenting sauna as a potential nice to do activity for these groups.
And Deb,
and then
when you
really
pull all those
crucially
elements together,
the outcomes and the impact of those. If you run a pilot, please do collect data and suggest the impact of that as well, because that is the language that we need to be able to publicise that and to get more people interested in this.
From a practical perspective.
From a practical perspective, it takes a long time.
I mean, again, if you want to talk to Cass or I about anything that we've covered today, there are our contact details. I think
with regards to sport and performance, the more effort and time and energy and resource you put into it, the better the outcome is going to be. So I would say it takes months to prepare a international standard Performance Aufguss show, and it takes a team as well. There are no successful or world-winning Aufguss masters that do this on their own. They usually have a team behind them that will help them. They'll bring in experts of different genres. It might be a lighting specialist or a video specialist or a prop specialist or something that will help them create and bring to life the journey that they want to go on. But some of these sauna masters and performance Aufguss masters, they're training literally every day like sports people. It's hours and hours of practice to really take that to an international competition level. So it's not for the faint-hearted, as in, you've got to be committed to this. But I can say that the guys that go on to these international competitions and even the national competitions and do well, it opens up so many doors for them, and the rewards, not just from that moment when you finish your Aufguss and you see the guests' faces, or you come out and we have what we call the cuddle queue, which is where you are hot and sweaty, but everyone still wants to come and give you a hug and tell you how amazing it is. But it's the opportunities, because this Aufguss competition is global. We have 20 countries around the world. It really opens up opportunities for these guys to travel internationally, to meet people from around the world, learn different cultures, learn different skills, and become part of a massive family, which is really warming, happy to share, and it's growing all the time, and I'm kind of really proud and really pleased to be part of it.
And James, building on that, how do you personally choose and develop themes or narratives, or how would you that would work well within this context of a sauna, the heat, scents, music, etc.? How do you tailor that? Because obviously a lot of us can sit here and think of ideas of, oh, wouldn't it be good to do this as an Aufguss? But how does that actually work?
Yeah, I mean, just to before answering that, Jake, just to pick up on a couple of things that Deb said, which I think were really important. It takes a really, really long time. I know Hannah is on the call from Australia. Hannah's a brilliant Aufguss master who has a podcast called the Sweat Pod, which I really recommend. I've been listening to lots of the episodes in which Hannah interviews international Aufguss masters. There's some amazing people that have been in conversation with Hannah on that podcast. And one of the things that's come up a number of times is the question, how long does it take you to prepare an Aufguss ritual? And several of the interviews have said things like 6 months, 8 months, a year. And I think that's so telling that it can take that long, that 14 minutes of artistry can take that amount of time to prepare. And circling back to your question, Jake, I think the reason it takes that long is that it's one thing to come up with a story, an idea. It's another thing to really craft that story into something that works very effectively as a show. One of my favorite sort of etymological facts about theatre is that, you know, we use the word playwright, and the etymology of playwright is obviously it comes from wrought, so it's the same as it's the same physical activity, writing a play, WRIGHT, as being a shipwright or an ironmonger. You know, it's hard work. You've got to graft it. You've got to grapple with it. And I think that's true of a lot of artistic endeavors, that it's not just coming up with a lovely idea. It's really delving into how to translate the idea that you have into a piece of art that speaks to people. You know, painters often, the final painting is their 50th draft. You know, writers redraft novels over and over and over again. And I think Aufguss performers will have an idea and then rewrite it and rewrite it and rewrite it over and over again until it's perfect. And just thematically, very quickly, I think it's about finding a story that works with all the elements. I think one of the things that's really struck me about great Aufguss performances is that in the storytelling, people acknowledge the heat, acknowledge the fact that water hits the stones, acknowledge the aroma, acknowledge the fact that there's more than one person in this sauna. A kind of understanding of all of the elements tied together in the story is what makes, I think, a really brilliant piece of sauna storytelling.
Just on that, I suppose, Deb and James, are there elements of the performance that you sort of believe have to always be respected or preserved, that are kind of sacrosanct despite that creative freedom?
I'll let you answer this one, James. We talked about this before, didn't we? Yeah.
Just from my perspective, I'm an outsider in this world, really. As I've said, I'm a theatre director, and I'm only recently involved in Performance Aufguss. So what I've tried to learn from Deb and from others who've been really generous with their time is about the importance of ritual, about the history of Aufguss, where it's come from, where sauna rituals have come from, and tried to educate myself in order that any work that I do honours the history, the tradition, the heritage of the space that we're in. And I think, I'm all for mixing things up and changing things. You know, I think that's what theatre's done very successfully for 1,000 years, is take history and heritage and then mess it up and try something new. But I think whatever we're doing in the world, we should always understand the origin and the heritage of the space in which we're working, and honour that, whilst also trying to find the new and trying to innovate in the space. So I suppose learning the rules of Aufguss, even if you then want to break them, is really important, and understanding sauna as a space of spirituality and ritual and calm and safety. I think really importantly, we talk in theatre a lot about the audience should feel safe. There's a brilliant quote, which is, the audience will go to hell with you, but only if it says hell on the front of a bus. And I think that's the sort of sense of, if you tell people what's happening, if you explain things, if you make sure they feel safe, then they will take risks with you. But Deb, you probably be able to answer that better than me.
No, I think you've answered that beautifully there, James. Yeah, I think it's being respectful of the fact that this is a sauna, and in a lot of cultures, it's a very, very spiritual place, going to the sauna. And, a lot of people, a lot of cultures and countries didn't and still don't like Performance Aufguss, because they think, it's an abomination what we're doing in there, because of the ritual and the spiritual side of it. So I think we need to bear that in mind when we are creating these performances. And also remember that it's a sauna experience. Yes, it's an artistic performance. It's a theatrical journey that we're taking our guests on, but ultimately it's a well-being experience. And that's really where the sort of ritual side comes into it. And that's why it's really great to see this blend of practitioners, really, in that you can't be a great Performance Aufguss master if you don't know sauna, and you also can't be a great Performance Aufguss master if you can't perform. So it's being able to respect both of those and bring them together. I don't know if you've got anything you want to add on that, Lucy.
Yeah, no, I think you've just answered that so beautifully. That's great. Thank you.
The UK Aufguss scene and UK sauna scene itself is evolving quite differently to, as Deb sort of touched on, the rest of Europe, and generally, the markets where sauna is growing really aggressively. So that's predominantly the United States, Canada, Norway, the United Kingdom, the United Arab Emirates, Japan, and Australasia. These markets are all not tied to the history, tradition, and sort of broader sort of cultural aspects to it. We don't have to pay the same credence to the tradition that comes before. And I think what's really nice about that in the UK, in particular, is when this movement really sort of started about 10 years ago to re-emerge, the British Sauna Society, and those early involved adopters, including myself, including a number of people you might have seen at sort of British Sauna Society events, really tried to be custodians of the experience and encourage people to enjoy an authentic experience. But it's now at a level where people are really just riffing on the concept and really trying out, seeing what works in this space, how far they can push things, and what people like and what people don't like. And I'm a huge advocate for that. I think, the sort of, if you believe in evolution, then you'll believe in the let people play around with the concept. If people don't like it, it won't have mileage. It won't survive. And if people love it and keep engaging with it, then it will still be here. And I think the great thing about Aufguss is it allows a lot of people to experience a lot of different things in the space, and it's not just a sauna experience. It's not just a curated sauna experience, but it's artistic and it's emotive and it's all those other great things. So I think, you know, we're in quite a unique position. You know, nobody's grandma's getting upset by us engaging in Aufguss, and I just see like people building year on year on that. And I see that in the international community as well. So we are slowly getting like Finnish participants, Estonian participants. So people are kind of going, okay, you know, okay, grandma, you know, I know you don't really like this thing, but I still want to have a play around with this idea and see what we can bring to the space. So I am, you know, I see this evolving in real time. And really, I mean, to the rest of the speakers here this evening, what, you know, what do you guys think it means to be part of that international Aufguss community? Obviously, you know, there's a lot of differences between the way that different international Aufguss bodies work and how they perform, but there's a lot of similarities as well, both artistically, but also sort of on a personal level.
Shall I go first?
Go on.
I think internationally it's quite no, it's not quite, it's a very, very special family to be part of. So Aufguss VM is the international body of this sort of 20 countries involved in that now, which is amazing that we can see, like you've just said, all these cultures come together, because every country you can kind of see has their own little quirk and different way of doing things, which is amazing. And it makes it fantastic for the guests, but also for the sauna masters, because they're learning all the time with this, not just different cultures, but they're meeting different people, and it's growing all the time. The following is growing. You know, you speak to the guys from Denmark, when they have international competitions, they literally have busloads of fans, like football fans, coming to see them perform. You know, in Japan, they have little towels with the name embroidered of the names of their favorite Aufguss masters on them, and they're waving them when their Aufguss masters are in there performing. It is, you know, there's an element of competition, of course, in there with this, but there is definitely almost like a tribe that has evolved from this, which is, it's fantastic, because it's such a it's just such a warm community, I guess, because we all have that one goal in mind, is that we want to create this, you know, the most amazing experience that we can create for our guests. And for myself, which I'm part of the jury and a part of, you know, I know Aufguss VM's board and all the leaders of all the countries, it's, for us, it's about creating a platform for these participants. It's about creating a competition and an environment where they can really go out there and showcase their skills, their knowledge and their talents as well, which for a lot of these guys, particularly from some of the smaller countries that potentially haven't had the opportunities that Western countries have had, it's an opportunity for them to really showcase their creativity that they may not have been able to do. And I think, you know, that's great for everybody.
I'm very of time, because we've done our hour, and so I wonder if anyone's got any questions, just drop them in the chat, so that we can try and answer anything anyone wants to ask. But just very quickly to answer your question, Jake, 37 million theatre tickets sold in the UK every year, 37 million theatre visits. I think that is an indicator of the potential of Aufguss to grow in this country, because it is, as I said at the start, it's a show, but it's in a sauna, and the sauna is really good for you, and it's really pleasant and really fun. So I think there's huge growth potential in the UK, and we could be at the start of something really, really exciting in this country that you know, could feed into the international community.
Sorry to interrupt. We've just had a question here. Yeah. Somebody is just saying on there, thank you from that they don't have a local sauna to work with. What's the best options for rehearsing? James and Lucy?
I think, well, it's a really good question. I think you can rehearse Aufguss anywhere, and we do, don't we? Deb, when Lucy and I have been working with the UK team, we rehearse in theatre rehearsal rooms. But I know from following lots of Aufguss masters on Instagram that most people rehearse in their bedrooms, but out of necessity. You know, I think you can rehearse absolutely anywhere. Of course, you know, there's a time will come when you need to get into the sauna, and it's really difficult if you don't have a sauna locally to you. But what I'm hoping is that the growth of sauna is going to mean that more and more saunas continue to be built and that accessibility widens, because I think the growth of sauna is contingent on people being able to get into the sauna, being able to access and afford sauna. So practice away in your bedroom, and hopefully a sauna will come near you soon.
And just to add to that as well, I would say don't underestimate the importance of doing a bit of conditioning as well. So if you have a local sauna that's not particularly good or doesn't, you know, isn't the sort of space that you can practice Aufguss in, you know, I would say still try and go often in the run up to big Aufguss events, because physically conditioning yourself to be exposed to the temperatures is really good for your endurance in those, particularly if you can do things like hot yoga or just moving in the space, just getting used to the, you know, the experience of being in that heat for that length of time. You know, if you've got a 15-minute performance window, just go and sit in a sauna for 15 minutes and think your way through what you're doing, you know, physically manifest, you know, in your mind's eye, take yourself through what you're going to perform. And, you know, take a stopwatch in there as well, and really just pace yourself through it, because, you know, certainly the feedback that I see from the British contestants who've perhaps not had the opportunity to practice as much in a big spa sauna is when they're in there in the heat on the day, it all just flies by because, you know, your brain's going a million miles an hour. And I think if you kind of condition yourself to be in that heat and not be stressed or over, you know, sped up by the fact that it's hot, that you'll have a better chance in there. So yeah, I think, and your body will respond well to you know, conditioning that like that, experiencing it.
For sure. We've got another question here. When do the UK Aufguss Championships run, and what support and training do you offer? I'm going to jump ahead, I hope, and you don't mind, and answer this one. So the Aufguss Championships usually take place at the beginning part of the year. So the 2026 Championships will take place in April next year, the 20th to the 22nd. We'll be making an official announcement on that next week. And then participant opening will then go online as well for participants to enter. But we offer loads and loads and loads of support and training. We actually have our first training video, which will be a webinar with myself, James, and Robert Zidek, who's one of the world champions, on the 12th of December. And again, that's going to be a webinar. And in that, we're going to talk a lot around creating your Aufguss. A lot of the subject matter that we've talked about today, about creating a story, how that can be projected within the sauna. And then we also have some training events happening next year. So we've got some sauna master courses for those guys that are in performance and want to learn how to be a sauna master. That's a good place to start. And then we also have lots of workshops with Lucy, James, myself, and then some of the sauna masters that we've got that are our mentors. We're very, very lucky in that our mentors are mainly from the Czech team, which are absolutely blowing it out the water internationally at the moment. So there's, as I say, there's webinars, we do workshops, we do in-persons. So we hope that we have little group chats, we've got an Instagram page, a website. So there is, we hope, a lot of support, not just for the guys that are new, but also the guys that are, that have been doing this for a little while as well, because it really is a community and we want to grow on that. Sorry. James, anything else? Or Lucy, you want to add on that while I just cough and choke here for a sec?
Sorry, no, I mean, I'd just say for anyone that's in the sort of theatre sphere or in any way a performer in other mediums, just try and go and see Aufguss if you can. I know it's not always easy. There's not always Aufguss accessible near where people live, but there is a lot online. There's a big sort of rabbit hole you can go down on YouTube to watch Aufguss performers. And if you can get there in person just to go and watch and observe, I think that's the most fantastic education. And certainly for me, the only way I knew anything about Aufguss was just watching other people perform it and trying to learn by watching from the brilliance of the performers that I was looking at.
We've also got on the British Sauna Society YouTube channel, we've got some videos that give you an overview of the competitions that we've had. So that might be a really good place to start as well, because that gives you a feel for what the competitions are like. It shows you the saunas, it shows you some of the sauna masters. So you can see on there some of the costumes that they're wearing. It gives you some examples of the towel techniques, the props. So it might give you a little bit of a feel for what these competitions are like.
I know we've massively overrun, so we should probably stop. But I'm gonna drop my email address in the chat so that if anybody does want to ask any further questions about the sort of theatre aspects of things, you're really welcome to drop me an email. Yeah, thanks everyone.
And then same for me, I'll put mine in the chat here now as well. So from a sauna master perspective, if anybody's got any questions, anybody wants to learn anything, then please feel free to drop me a line.
Thanks all. Thank you so much, guys. That's been really insightful. And yeah, if you've got any questions, do reach out. We look forward to hopefully seeing you guys at the playoffs. Sorry, at the championships, not the playoffs.
So just one last question. Does Aufguss UK only support show Aufguss or ritual classic Aufguss also? Aufguss UK is show at the moment. We will be moving more towards modern classic next year. But if it's more sort of ritual saunas that you're interested in, then your British Sauna Society is the umbrella for that. Aufguss UK is specifically around the show Aufguss. Hopefully that helps.
Thanks so much, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Really great to have this chat. And yeah, I'm super excited about a future where there's more dancers and theatre artists entering this space. See you there.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers, guys.
Brilliant.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.